in this Planet Zoo video, we're going to be filling in some gaps in a zoo, as well as doing some terraforming and some terrain work. So I'm going to be going around the zoo, showing you how I go about filling gaps, those, you know, those annoying gaps. And then we're going to be going into terraforming and rock work and foliage work to make your zoo come alive and look more realistic. That's right, in this video we're going to be talking about gaps. This is kind of like, I think this is episode 19 of Newtropic Zoo now, but it's also a bit like a tutorial as well. So all these gaps you can see where we can see greenery, we need to get those filled, whether it be with planters, facilities. This is how I'd go about it. Hopefully you can take some tips and tricks away from this video and you can get filling those annoying gaps in your own zoos. First of all, we're going to go to the front of the zoo and we're going to build a roundabout. That's correct. I want to make this zoo look as realistic as possible, so it looks like you could actually go to zoo in real life. Now we're going to use the rotational trick to build a roundabout, and if you don't know how to rotate stuff like this, I have got a tutorial on the channel. Go and check it out now. It's far more complicated than me explaining how to do it right now in this video, but this is the basics of how our roundabout is going to look. It looks quite simple, but the main thing is it looks functional and it's effective. I'm going to use a technique here, and what you can see me doing, this is quite hard for me to explain. We've got an outer circle and we need to create an inner circle, and the best way to do this is use an on the grid piece to see where they join. So you will see this middle piece joins into these side pieces. I need to cover this and join them up with any piece I want. So for instance, I'm using the plaster pieces here, and where those join up, once I've deleted everything, it will create the inner circle as we're doing the rotational trick to create the outer circle. That was a mouthful, I know, and it probably sounds complicated. It sounded complicated in my head. Hopefully you understand what the effect I'm trying to do here, and it will come to life as well, and I will show you how it does come out looking. We're just going to duplicate that plaster piece to this side, remember lining it up where our joints are with the other pieces, and then we're going to delete the side pieces. Now once we've deleted these side pieces, we'll have one whole piece. We'll delete the guides, and then I'll show you what I mean. All I have to do is now rotate this and everything should line up perfectly. See, the outer circle and the inner circle where the plaster pieces we just put in all line up perfectly now. We just have to rotate that round and create our circle. But first we need to spruce this up a little bit. So let's delete the middle mulch, and we're going to just rotate it around and complete this roundabout now, because in the center I want a water feature. I don't feel like I've got enough water in this zoo, so we're going to add some water. Let's delete all these mud columns so we've got this one piece, merge them all together, and you can see not all of it is lined up exactly how I want it. You see the mulch is poking out. That's okay, just go back to it. If something's not right, go back to it and change it. And we're just going to ever so slightly move these pieces so we can get these mulch in, and it just wasn't playing ball game. So I thought I'm going to have to do this individually. It's more time consuming. I really didn't want to do it, but I'm a bit of a perfectionist and you've got to do it. And this is going to fill a large gap at the beginning of our zoo. This is going to be kind of like an entrance way. We've already got an entrance built, which obviously we built in the first episode of Newtropic Zoo. But I wanted, it to look more realistic. And there's a large gap there, isn't there? How much of a big gap that is where there's just nothing. I could have filled it with trees and just add it as an entrance area for the zoo. But I thought, let's go with the realism aspect and build a roundabout, and then build a road leading into the roundabout and into the zoo. And then on the sides we can add the mulch. Again, it just adds that realistic aspect, doesn't it? Once the roundabout was in and the road was pretty much complete, I needed to fence off an area. As you can see, we've got a large gap on the left hand side and a large gap on the right hand side of this roundabout, and where our zoo actually is, our pathing of our zoo. So I wanted to, add a barrier, add a wall, add a fence, what will separate the actual zoo from the road. Those gaps we're going to fill with foliage. We'll do that in a second. But this is a very simple fence. It's a fence I've already used in the zoo, so it was very easily to duplicate. It was all done with the conservation pieces, so the normal conservation colours, and then the other conservation pieces recoloured to black, so it makes it look like metal. And then we're just going to cover these gaps with foliage. We're not going to do any fancy planters. We're not going to even really think about how we're placing it. We're going to place this really sporadically. Is that the correct word? My English is going downhill so quick. But yeah, but it's kind of like spontaneously, we're just going to place random trees. We're not going to place all the same trees. You want to get a little bit of a colour variant in there. And then we're going to grab some rocks from the inside zoo and we're going to bring them outside the zoo, especially this cluster of rocks, what I've created when I was creating the striped hyena habitat. And we're just going to place them down as well. So it just, you know, to separate the foliage a little bit. Where you add foliage, tend to add rocks. That's what I would say. That would be my advice. And we're just going to do this all around the outside. Make sure no grass is poking in through our custom made road. Obviously this road is not functional, but the more it looks like it is functional, the better the zoo will look. And once the road and the roundabout was complete, it looks something like this. You can see all the foliage is in, and in the centre we've got our lovely little water feature. Again, with the same sign what we've got in the entrance, just saying Newtropic Zoo. I wanted to keep it modern. I wanted to keep it quite simple. And yeah, simple but effective I was going with this roundabout. You see on the other side of the fenced off area, there is another large gap. We need to create something in there. I'm thinking planters. And the easiest way to complete a planter is just use the on the grid system. So we're just going to duplicate it over. We're going to place it down just like this. So remember, it's on the same grid as the rest of the buildings now, which all the buildings are on that grid. And all we have to do is place it down. And when we do place it down, we can then click on it and separate it from that building group. So if we do need to move anything, it's not a struggle. We're not selecting the whole of the rest of the habitat, what we've just got it from. And then we're just going to line this up. It's as simple as that. We're going to add mulch to the inside, and this is going to be our planter along the outside and the rim of the actual zoo itself. And this is possibly the easiest way to fill gaps, in my opinion, is with planters and foliage and rock work. It's so easily done, and it's the quickest and most effective way. It honestly is. And if you was to go in a zoo in real life, this is what you would find. You would find on the outskirts of a zoo some planters or some foliage and rock work, and you would definitely find a fence like this, fencing off your actual zoo and stop people looking in and climbing in and stuff like that and getting in for free. You want guests to pay, right? So let them go through the entrance and block off everywhere else. I thought it was just too long, this thing, so I wanted to separate with a little bit of kind of like an alcove here. We're going to add some decking and we're going to add some seating for our guest. Kind of like a little canopy area in it for our guest to chill out. Like a guest chill out zone is what I'm going to call it. Again, quite simple but effective. We're using the same colours what we use throughout the zoo, and we're going to duplicate stuff like this lovely little canopy area here to get some shade for our guests when they're sitting down. And then we're just going to move the mulch in and squirt everything off, make sure everything's looking nice and neat. And like I said, this is definitely the most effective way to fill these pesky gaps in your zoos. We're going to go on to, stick around, so we're going to go on to like larger stuff like the terraforming and using the terrain tool to mould the outside of the actual zoo. And we're going to be building a massive water fountain in the zoo as well. Try to give it that more natural look, like it is set in the kind of like the outback of Africa here, the grasslands of Africa in the middle of nowhere, this zoo. And then with this, you can see me doing now, I'm just going to group all these trees together because this is the most effective and easiest way to do it. And we're just going to duplicate it over and move it over with the advanced movement tools, lining everything up. And there we go, we have got a planter. And how quick was that? I know this is sped up, but even not sped up, it literally took me about a minute to do this planter. We're going to add some little different plants to give it a little bit of variety and a little bit of colour depth. And then again, we're just going to fill in the other side. We're going to add the middle, and then we're going to duplicate everything over. So we need to get it all together, merge it all together, and boom, the other side of the planter is done. And how big of a gap is that, what we've just filled? Right, let's talk about terrain work and terraforming. I do this so randomly, and what I mean by this is I'll just pull bits out the ground. I'll have water, create little like pockets of water here and there around the place, and just kind of like go with the flow. It doesn't need to look perfect. At the end of the day, it will not look perfect if this was in real life. If you're staring into desert or you're staring into the grasslands of Africa, you will see it look like this. There's no organisation to it, is what I'm trying to say. So just kind of like go with the flow, create pockets of water, create a little bit of depths in heights of terrain, and just build stuff up, and then build your terrain around your initial pathwork, what you've already put into your zoo. And that's what you can see me doing here. And this is where our water water fountain is going to be. Let's just move that. That was just some backstage props, what I wanted to upload to the Steam Workshop. But this is where we're going to have a body of water, and we're going to have a massive water fountain, a water feature coming into our zoo. It looks like the outside of the natural world is coming into our zoo, and we've built a zoo around it, and that's the kind of look I wanted to go with, and hopefully I do end up pulling it off by the end of this video. But yeah, it's all about getting the terrain. I mean, recolouring the terrain. Most of this is grasswork and rock, so just add long grass and rock with the terrain tool. Add these pockets of tropical looking water, and it's as easy as that. Try not to overthink it. And then with these jagged edges and with these terrain tools that you've used, especially closer to the inside of your zoo itself, forget about the outside for now, create foliage and rockwork like this, and cover those edges what look like rock faces. And then with a lot more foliage and a lot more rockwork, it will turn out like this. I know it's a big jump, I am aware, but all I've done is the same techniques I've just shown you. We've created those rock faces, we've covered the jagged edges, and we added a water fountain right in the center, well, a waterfall right in the center. We've used the same techniques I always show in all my videos and all my tutorials with the rockworks and the foliage, and digging them down into the ground and into the actual terrain what you've got there. But how better does that look now? Now we have got more gaps to fill around the zoo like this, but you can probably guess with what I'm going to do with a square gap like this. I'm going to do like I did on this outskirt of this building, and it's quite simple as that. Most of my gaps that I fill in my zoo are going to be either foliage, rockwork or planters, which include, yeah, you guessed it, foliage and rockwork. For annoying gaps like this, because it's not a square gap, it was quite difficult to add a planter. Guess what I did? I just added foliage and rockwork. It don't matter if it's overlapping your path. Don't worry about it, you will find rocks overlapping paths in places in real life. I just added this little path here, and I clicked on add railing to ground path. That's terminology I was looking for. And then it just gives the impression that our guests can come here and get a wonderful view of our waterfall. And all this I just placed so randomly. I just went through it and just like boom, place, and just filled the gaps of where you can see the terrain, so where the sand is. And like I said, as you zoom in out and as you go all the way like this, it doesn't matter about these gaps. This is what you would find it in real life. Concentrate on your zoos and fill the gaps in your zoos first as well. If you have got annoying gaps, like I had an annoying gap here with a path, I just included my custom paths. Remember, guests will walk on your custom paths like you can see them doing here. So if you have got gaps where your paths are, just cover it with custom paths and it will look like there was no gaps whatsoever. You won't believe how many gaps are actually under here, especially when you create buildings like this, what I walk through buildings. The gaps under this flooring, they are loads. You can see the guests are coming this way and going that way, but they can't go that way. That's because there's a gap there, but you would have never guessed that because custom floors are down. So let's have a little recap. We're talking planters for gaps, we're talking custom floors for gaps, and we're talking, on the bigger scale of things, a lot of rock work and foliage going into it. I know this can be very can't get my words out. I know this can be very time consuming, but just bear with it. Be a little bit patient and find ways to quicken your time. Duplicate stuff together. I mean, merge stuff together. You see, I've merged these trees set together. All I have to do is duplicate it over, and I can then place it wherever I want then, and cover a larger surface area quicker. Newtropic Zoo is really coming to life now and actually starting looking like a genuine zoo. Hopefully you now feel more comfortable in filling gaps in your zoos. And this is technically an episode of Newtropic Zoo, so I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did like this episode or it helped you in any kind of way, then please hit that like button. If you're new around here and you're into playing Planet Zoo, then you might as well hit that subscribe button. My name's Adam, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will catch you in the next Planet Zoo video.